How many Zoom meetings did you have before the national pandemic, do you think, in your entire life combined?
Well, that's the funny thing because I had never heard of Zoom before the pandemic. Now I'm a Zoom expert and wish I invested a long time ago. But yeah, like most of us coaches are in the same boat. We went from not knowing about Zoom or maybe hearing about it to now being able to share our screens and set up our own Zoom meetings and invite people to and change our backgrounds, obviously. So it's been an education over the last couple of months.
We've heard the NFL coaches and just all sports. I was watching something with the baseball GMs a couple days ago, how they think it might just change some of their processes. For you guys, especially during recruiting, sending your coaches all over the place and then trying to come back for meetings, and you guys are such a national recruiting base in the way you guys operate. Do you think this Zoom and this experience the last couple months will just change a little bit how you guys operate moving forward?
Absolutely. Um, we we look at difficulties as challenges. That's how football coaches' minds work. And we're a national recruiter, and I think we do it extremely well. Well, this has forced us to be better. It's forced us to adapt. We've always had guys that maybe can't afford to make the trip uh, in the summer or in the spring. So we've had to do things, but now I think we've gotten better. So now we're able to have visits without people leaving their own homes, and we can show all the things that Stanford has, and have now we have in the can, so to speak, talking like a TV guy. I've got some things in the can now, to
Speaking our
where
lingo.
yeah, exactly. Professors and our strength coach, and so we have all of these now, these presentations now. So if we do down the road when everything opens up and people can still travel, there still may be somebody from the East Coast that just can't make the trip. Well, now we can give them a high quality, still not the same, but a high quality visit from 3,000 miles away.
So, have you done any virtual tours like Nick Rolovich with a phone taped to your forehead, riding your bike around campus yet?
I I stay in my lane. I think that's one of the beauties of our conference and coaching in general is everybody. You're always successful when you're yourself, and that's not me. I love Nick. I've enjoyed getting to know him, but I think there's so many different ways that we can be ourselves, and science tells us, the studies tell us that even though this isn't face to face, it still operates like face to face in our brains. So this is a contact. This is a personal contact. So we're still able to get to know people and show our personalities, even though we're not close to each other.
One thing all over the country right now, different restrictions for different areas, and you're in an area in the South Bay that's still pretty strict. I would imagine there are Pac-12 coaches that are allowed to go into their office right now. Are you guys allowed to go in your office? I take it. Are you at home right now? And how do you have any idea if you're not at the office when you think you can get back?
Well, we're all hoping that if not the middle of this month, toward the end of this month, our county is one of those that starts to relax the rules. Um, but we're not in the office right now, and the biggest thing is that we get our guys back early enough for them to start working out, starting to get prepared for the season. We've proven over the last couple of months that we can do a lot from our homes. We can do a lot through Zoom, through sharing our screens, through tapping in. For the first time ever, now I know how to get on my computer from my house and my computer that's still in the office. So now I can get all the files that I have there, so we can operate at a very high level without being in the office. That's our hope now is as we get closer, we don't have to be in the office to get our jobs done.
I saw your athletics director, Bernard Muir, said, I think it was today or yesterday, that he's very grateful to have had you the last couple of weeks when the focus obviously has transitioned from COVID-19 to the social issues that we face in this country. And he was grateful for you, not just because of how you handle your football team, but kind of your counsel with everything in a much larger picture, the whole department, everybody's teams. What has been your message? What have you tried to communicate, not just to your football team, but to the people you've come in contact with these last couple of weeks?
Well, for me personally, I struggled for a good 4 or 5 days, and we've talked before. I have no issue usually finding words to describe how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. It took me about 4 or 5 days to truly synthesize a sentence that I could relate to anybody. But what helped me is two things. One is focusing on what's important. So we're able to have those family conversations before I had any other conversations. My wife and I talking to our kids about what's going on. And then beyond that was talking to my team and talking to the leadership on my team and getting a gauge for how guys are feeling and what guys would like to do. And I still didn't say anything publicly for a while. And then after talking to our guys, and our guys actually put out a statement first, started by our 5th-year seniors. And that, I think, really helped push me into a direction to say, you know what, I don't have to, and which people are contacting me, if you can imagine, to not just speak for coaches, but to speak for all African-American coaches. And I'm not going to speak for other people. What I decided to do, though, was support my team and accentuate their message that they put out. It was first a statement and then a video. So we put those things out, and they were very organic. We didn't tell them what to do. We didn't tell them what to say. All we did was give them a platform. I'm so proud of those guys. And that for me was big because, you know, I recentered myself in what's important to me, which is the teaching and mentoring aspect of my position. So from there, I've helped and talked to a bunch of different people around the country, a bunch of different organizations. There's so much going on social media and so many good things going on social media. I haven't really jumped into that. I've decided to the things that I do to be more personal and talking to people, talking to Cory Booker, my former teammate, who's a U.S. Senator who's pushing legislation, talking to former players that are doing things in their communities, talking to commissioners of other conferences, talking to other coaches, other places, talking to businesses. I've talked to 3 or 4 businesses about education and minority issues and justice issues. So that's the kind of the path that I've taken, and I feel great about that because once again, that suits me, that fits me, which is a lot more personal, a lot more hands-on than really making a whole bunch of statements for the public.
Is there a pressure you feel, like you said, African-American head coach, everything that's going on, and just the platform that just football definitely is on, people come right to you? You know, I mean, you're probably in a small group of people that they want immediately, what is David Shaw's opinion on this issue? I would imagine your phone from reporters and networks just kind of go off. Was that a tough balance, like you said, to just kind of make it personal, make sure your team and your family come first before, you know, how do you balance that?
Yeah, that part wasn't tough. People that know me really well. And it sounds so bad saying it, but I think it's just the truth. I don't feel pressure. I don't feel pressure from other people. I refuse my entire life to let somebody pressure me into doing anything. And if I don't do what somebody wants me to, then that's on them. That's not on me. I do what I think is right. I'm a prayerful person, so I believe that I'm trying to do what's right, both close to me and globally, the people that I affect. So there have been people that have reached out and tried to say, hey, you have to use your platform for this. And when I'm in a good mood, I just chuckle and I say, thank you for your opinion. When I'm not in a good mood, I have choice words for people that try to tell me what to do, which has never worked for anybody since I've become an adult. So that's what I counsel people to do. That's what I talk to my team about also is, hey, if you're going to say something, make sure it's backed up by more than just your emotions. Get facts and figures if you want to say something publicly, so that way you can defend it. And at the same time, I don't believe in pressuring other people to do what you want them to do, and I don't believe in responding to pressure to do what other people want you to do. So that's kind of where I stay in my little lane with what I believe is right and saying what I believe we should do.
Were any of these topics conversations you had with your dad when you were either growing up or maybe transitioning from athlete to coach?
We didn't have a lot of conversations then because I lived with him and I was getting into the coaching profession, and I'd seen his career. Although it was an outstanding career, he's a great defensive coordinator. He's one of the top recruiters every year he was in college. He was an outstanding defense coordinator in the NFL and 2 of the biggest turnarounds ever. What he did at the Raiders was unbelievable. what he did with the Chargers when he went into the Chargers, when he went to the Super Bowl. So has a lot of respect. But I also watched him come in second multiple times for head coaching jobs, college and the NFL. And after the fact, most people reaching out to him and saying, gosh, I think we made a mistake. So I watched firsthand and hear in the scuttlebutt that some places just weren't ready to have a black head coach, so the getting that non-apology apology, to my father, watching that happen. So there were I went into this thing face first. I understand how this world works and how this college football world works. So I had no misconceptions. I knew it was going to be difficult, but at the same time, I had an ally that my dad didn't have, which is I had first and foremost my father in his career, and he opened a couple of doors for me. And I went in and I worked extremely hard, and I was connected with some really good people. Going to work for Ray Rhodes at the Philadelphia Eagles was huge. Getting hooked up with John Gruden, at the time was the Wonder Boy, and John didn't care if I was young, old, white, black, whatever. My job was to come in at 4:00 in the morning and work my tail off. And if I did that, then I was his guy. So John advanced my career by years because I worked hard and I was smart and I figured out what he wanted me to do, and I did it to the best of my ability. So now at one point I was the youngest quarterback coach in the NFL and one of the few black quarterback coaches in the NFL. So part of it is the mentality to go in with, but it's also, getting grabbed by somebody saying, hey, you know what, you're doing a great job, you're coming with me. So the mentality I had developed just watching my dad go through what he went through, knowing that it was not going to be easy, and that part was on me to work my tail off and do extremely well. And the other part was working with the right people and getting the right people to help you.
Guy and I were talking before you got on that if you would have told me 5 or 6 years ago, especially when he made the play against Michael Crabtree, that Richard Sherman, would one day not just be a Niner, but would be the voice of the Niners, and you could argue non-quarterback, one of the voices of the league. The way he's spoken, through social media and stuff the last couple weeks, but overall with the CBA and what he meant to this team. They had a couple issues last year with Nick Bosa when he was drafted, some things on social media, and then an announcer got in trouble, and Richard you've always been in his corner from day one and supported him, but I think the country is he was probably one of the more polarizing players in the league. I would say he's probably one of the more well-liked and respected guys in the NFL currently. It's kind of crazy his maturation of his career.
Richard Sherman's like a member of my family. We as coaches love all of our players. We get closer to some than others. Richard is just kind of meandered his way into my family. Like, my kids love him. My wife loves him. And we've had a lot of conversations over the years, and I'll share one with you. You mentioned that play against Crabtree and the ensuing post-game interview that made him famous around the country, really, in some places outside the country. And we had a conversation right after that. And I said, okay, you're going to get judged for that conversation, yelling and screaming and, saying what every defensive back in America says. You're just saying it right after the game with a lot of emotion, honestly, to a Caucasian female reporter, right? So a lot of things happened. He was called every name in the book after that. And so I told him two things. I said, number one, I said, now you're going to have to defend yourself and who you are, because you're going to get attacked for this. I talked to him pretty much as soon as he got dressed after the game, which I said is fine. I said, because people are going to get to know you. So let them get to know you, because right now that's all they're going to have to judge. And he did a phenomenal job in the ensuing 2 weeks, I believe it was. That was one of those 2 weeks until the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he gave more interviews than maybe any non-quarterback in a 2-week span in maybe the history of the NFL. And he won so many people over after that. Because really think about what he said, which was, any good corner would say, like, you don't take that guy one-on-one against me with the game on the line. Like, that's a sign of disrespect to any corner in America, right? You're going to throw the fade route on me to win the game? Like, you should go with the other side, right? It was basically what he said, which is fine. He just said it really loud and very aggressively. But over the next 2 weeks, I got so many calls from people saying, wow, I judged Richard Sherman. I thought he was something. And then I heard him speak, and gosh, he's really, really smart. And my response always was, he's a Stanford man. He's a Stanford man. So here's a guy that graduated salutatorian from his high school. Graduated, I don't forget his GPA from Stanford. It's something like 3.5, 3.6, something like that. He's brilliant. He's very, very smart. So later down the road, one thing I said to him was, hey, the Richard Sherman from Compton, that's the one that plays corner in the NFL. The Richard Sherman from Stanford should be the guy that gives the interviews. So that's kind of where we decided to meet in the middle. And he's been awesome. He's very thoughtful. He's very emotional about a lot of things, and that's the only thing that I talk to him about now. He's too old for me to try to ever contain. I just try to remind him, like, hey, just like I tell the team now, you have something to say, back it up with facts, not just with your emotions. Explain yourself, and he does an outstanding job.
I mean, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, those guys no one's going to contain him, right?
No, and I don't think you ever really want to. Richard's a fire hose, so every once in a while you just want to try to make sure it's pointed in the right direction. But the water's coming out. It's coming out fast.
Middlekauff always told me when he was scouting, he's like, you don't understand, these Stanford guys, they're just different. And I would always say, yeah, I'm sure. Like, it's super hard to get in. Like, yeah, of course they're different. But he's like, no, you don't understand. They are not like anybody else. And then I started interviewing Stanford guys, and he was like, I told you so. Don't you understand now? I said, yeah, okay, now I get it. And I'm not trying to be funny. I don't know what salutatorian is. I didn't know there was something above. Is that above valedictorian?
That's valedictorian is the high. Like salutatorian is somewhere underneath that. I wasn't a salutatorian, but I just know that it's pretty good.
Man,
they didn't give those out at Davis Senior High School up the road. I know
they did. That's not to us.
Yeah, I mean, no chance. Another player who I'd say the two guys that are synonymous with their head coach kind of pounding the table over the last 6-7 years was Deshaun Watson and Dabo, and you and Christian McCaffrey. And I think they ended up, Christian went 8, and I think Deshaun went 10th. I mean, they both went really high, but they were polarizing players coming out of college. Christian McCaffrey has just, blown. I thought he was a good player, but holy moly. I mean, he's probably one of the top 5 non-quarterback offensive players in the league. Safe to say you are not shocked. Where do you think he can go from here? I mean, is just the sky the limit? I mean, we're talking a Hall of Famer. You've always kind of said that, so I wouldn't imagine you'd change now.
So college football coaches get a bad rap for just pumping their guys and promoting their guys, right? It helps in recruiting. It helps your guys, know that their coach has their back. So first, I'll start with Deshaun Watson. So Dabo and I are really good friends. And I went to go visit Clemson the spring before their national championship, and Deshaun was hurt. So I stood next to Deshaun during practice, and I've never been more impressed by a guy not practicing ever. Because what he would do is every play call, he would watch the signal, he'd watch the play, and then he would give an evaluation to Dabo after every play. Hey, this is what I saw. This is what happened. This is where this guy was. The quarterback did the right thing or he did the wrong thing because X, Y, and Z. He did it for every single play. His vision from the sideline was amazing. His anticipation of, okay, nope, he made the wrong decision. Here's why, right? The rotation of the safety, the outside linebacker was too wide, blah, blah, blah. And I was amazed at his brain and his anticipation and his ability to relate what was happening. So I understood why Dabo says, okay, you see all the great plays that he makes, and people weren't sure about him because he's surrounded by a lot of great players. But then once you get access to that kind of a brain, I mean, it's a Drew Brees brain, it's an Andrew Luck brain, and you're around that, and you're trying to tell people, the NFL scouts that come in, you're trying to look at the height, weight, speed, and when he does this, he asks the questions, but getting the answers is not the same as living through it. So I know Dabo why he was pushing so hard. And same thing with us and Christian McCaffrey. Christian, all I heard from all the scouts was, okay, well, you're not a big back. And I said, don't tell him that, because he operates like a big back. You ask him what he wants to do. He wants to run the ball between the tackles. And he wants to have 30 carries and wants to take your heart in the fourth quarter. So you see the height, weight, and speed, but sometimes you don't see the heart and you don't see the work ethic every single day. The worst stare that Christian McCaffrey ever gave me was when I stopped letting him practice on Mondays because we're trying to take care of him. because he wants to take every practice, every rep in practice too, every single day. And it was just, he's like, you're holding me back. Like, I want to go. Like, I want to go full speed. I'm like, dude, we're going to put 30 touches on you on Saturday. Like, we have to take care of you on Monday and Thursday and Friday. And he finally got it and realized that we're taking care of him. But you're right. And being with him every single day and seeing the explosion and the quickness and the anticipation and the toughness and the work ethic and the leadership, I kept telling people, like, you have to watch him. First, you have to see him live. Watching on film is not the same. When you see Christian live, everybody says, oh my God, like, how did he get out of that? Like, how did he accelerate like that? How did that happen? That he shouldn't have gotten out of that. But then once you're around him for a while, and I'll tell you one conversation I had with Christian, it was the spring after his big year, going into his junior year. We have a deal after the coaches come back off the road, have all the guys around, have a barbecue, and talk and see each other. I hadn't seen each other for a couple of weeks, about a month doing spring recruiting. And Christian grabbed me and gave me pretty much a person-by-person evaluation of the entire team. This guy's working hard. We got to get on this guy. This guy needs to do this. This guy needs to do that. Hey, this group is working really hard. I like where they are. We need a little bit of growth in this position here. And after the conversation, I was like, why am I coming to work? Like, this guy's running the team. He's got it all. He's motivating them. He's pushing them. He's telling everybody what to do. Like, I could coach from home. This is easy. And that's what you don't see on film. And I knew the moment he stepped on the field, no matter where he went, he was going to go from rookie to team leader in about 5 minutes.
I know Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back, but McCaffrey, there's a list of guys who probably should have won Heisman's. Christian, I don't know if people realize that Christian has, John and I were talking about this earlier, 400 more all-purpose or scrimmage yards in his career than Reggie did. Had almost as many touchdowns. The highlight film is just as crazy. They both have those little Babe Ruth legs where it's like, like the film is sped up. They both were killers in the return game, except the difference was really Christian carried more of the load running between the tackles than Reggie did. Did you think
Yeah, Lendell White took a big load off of Reggie, which you can't really blame Reggie for.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you watch the film for both of them and you just say, wow. And I know Christian, that was one of Christian's most exciting moments early in his life was the day he met Reggie Bush, because he looked up to him. And part of the reason why he wore number 5 was the dynamic play of Reggie. And it was a joy for Christian, because it was a sign of respect that he passed 2 of his idols. One was Barry Sanders, breaking Barry Sanders' all-time record, and then breaking some of the records of Reggie Bush, because those are guys he looked up to and tried to emulate.
We've spent a lot of time talking about, from an NFL perspective, the no off season. I mean, they didn't even have OTAs. Some programs, got a couple spring practices in, but all the spring games basically canceled. But a huge part of your off season, probably even more than the NFL guys, is building 18 and 19-year-olds' bodies, right? With food and definitely the strength and conditioning program. Are you nervous just because, unlike the NFL, these guys have money and they can get to places, and I think you've seen on social media a lot of them can and have. How are your guys maintaining the lifting and the eating that they would typically do when they'd be on campus over this 3-month hiatus?
Yeah, I think there's a similar feeling in the NFL and in college football, that even those guys that do it really well, it's still not the same as training with your team. Yeah. It's still not the same as pushing yourself with the other receivers, the other defensive backs. Some guys go to gurus and do great workouts, but you feel you're not sure about your entire team until they all come back. So we've been sending our guys workouts. Our strength coaches have been checking in with them, making sure they have everything they need. Our nutritionists have been checking in with them on their diets and giving some guys some guidance. Our trainers are checking in with them, especially those guys that are rehabbing. Those guys are really worried about finishing their rehab away from us, because that's the hard part, is really finishing that rehab. So we've got a good plan for whenever they come back, that we're gonna ramp up pretty slowly. The most important thing is we get them back healthy before we get a chance to play, and we have some level of comfort that they'll be able to play the entire season. So that those first couple of weeks back, heavy on the strength and conditioning, but heavy in such a way that it's going to be a priority to make sure that they're ramping up slowly, and then getting ready to get into training camp.
I want to ask you about Davis Mills. Obviously, when he played, he had some big games, set Stanford's all-time single-game passing record against Washington State. I know Albert Breer wrote recently that Daniel Jeremiah told him Davis Mills would be he said he just kind of asked him, like, give me one guy that's going to pop into the first round that people don't quite realize, and he said him. John and I were watching some of the highlights from the Notre Dame game, and I didn't even quite realize how athletic he is. Maybe I judge guys with a knee brace, just like subconsciously. I'm serious. But then he made one move in that game where he escapes a tackle and takes off run for a long run through a nice touchdown to Michael Wilson. Give us your scouting report on why you believe, because I know you do believe in Davis Mills so much.
Yeah, and Daniel and I work together at the Baltimore Ravens, and he and I have always pretty much seen things very similar. That's why I love talking to him about guys, because we usually pretty much on the same page. Davis Mills, we saw him in high school. It's one of those evaluations to where you're not looking at what he does well. You say, is there anything he doesn't do well? And it's one of those things where very quickly, arm strength, athleticism, quick release, the impromptu plays where he's got to go on the move and he keeps his eyes down the field, and the ridiculous plays where he's rolling to his left and throws the ball, the terrible decision, great throw plays. Oh my God, don't do that. Wow, that was a great throw. All those things you saw in high school. And when I went to go do the visit at the school, and I sat down with the coach and I was asking him questions. He said, Coach, I can answer the questions. I'm going to put a game on. We're going to watch every single play, and you're going to see everything that you're looking for in a quarterback. And he was right. We saw it all, stepping up in the pocket, throwing guys in his face. And this was his junior year. I'm like, can this guy get better? And he was better his senior year. Now, the issue for Davis has been he got hurt. I was at the state championship game where he got hurt. So his freshman year with us, he was still rehabbing. We're taking our time. He comes back and gets hurt again. And so even when he started to play early in the year, he still wasn't 100%. Even in the game he got a chance to start against USC, which he played well, didn't play great, played well, still wasn't 100%. Played a little bit again later when KJ got hurt, and still wasn't 100%. When he came back, I think those last 4 games of the year, he was 100%. And just like you said, you saw all the things that he can do. He made a throw with a guy in his face on the run against Oregon State for a touchdown. And all of our coaches, Ron Gould was at Cal with Aaron Rodgers, and he says, "Gosh, that was an Aaron Rodgers play." He made a play where he spun out of 3 tackles and ran for a first down, and we said, "Okay, that's the Andrew Luck play." Like, we have all these great players, and he does these things, and he does them pretty easily. He dropped the ball in against Washington State, probably the best throw of the night. We're backed up, a guy in his face, and throws a go route to Connor Weddington. The guy was draped on Connor's shoulder, and the ball landed right here. And we had a timeout a little bit later, and Davis asked Connor, he said, "Hey, where'd that ball come down?" And Connor said, "Right here." And Davis said, "Yeah, I thought so." So it's one of those deals where he's got the supreme athletic ability, the supreme arm strength, and all the quarterback things, and the accuracy, but he also has that confidence, and not that arrogance, but it's a confidence of, yeah, I think I know how good I am, and that kind of exudes on the field. And I feel the same way. I think by the end of the day, he's going to be probably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in America, and we'll have. I don't think he'll have a tough decision to make, because I think he'll have a great year, and he'll be ready. He'll be ready for the draft. Be great to have him for 2 more years, for another year after that. But I think his ability is such, and if he plays the way his ability is, he'll be one of the best guys.
One thing I've always been fascinated by is when really successful people, and I think athletics is a great example, coaches and organizations have a down year, that aren't used to down years, that just success. And you guys have had so much, since you become the head coach. And even the last 2 years before 19, you guys had won, I think, 18 games in 2 years. And then last year did not, injuries and everything just snowballed. But Does your message change? Obviously, the pandemic hits, but your plan for the off season. How were you planning on approaching the off season if the pandemic hadn't hit? Was there or was it just simply just get back to work and we'll be okay?
Well, I learned from a lot of really good coaches that you have the same process after a difficult year as you have after a good year. And that process is still holistic. It's still from top to bottom. Even those years after we won the Rose Bowl and we're top 5 in America, we still go back and look at everything that we did and evaluate everything that we did. Because when you have a lot of success, sometimes you think that you're better than you are. So you think everything you did was great. And you go back, and when you really look at it with a fine-tooth comb, like we wasted 40 plays during the course of the year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot of plays. Like, why are we beating our heads again? Now, we won the game, we won by 2 touchdowns, but we're running a play that we shouldn't run with our guys because they're not doing a good job. So you get glossed over with success. Now, it's easier to be critical when you don't have a good year. So that part was easy. But the hard part when you don't have a good year is you look back and you say, hey, you know what? There were some guys that played really, really well. Our receiver play I thought was really, really, really good the entire year. Simi Fehoko broke the school record for yards per catch. Michael Wilson had an outstanding year. Connor Weddington had an outstanding year. So you're looking at those guys and saying, okay, look, let's continue to accentuate what these guys do well. We're still excited about Osiris St. Brown and what he can do for us. Let's look at our running backs, our young running backs. They didn't play a lot, but gosh, they played in spurts and they did some really good things. Our young offensive line, they learned on the job, pretty much daily. And there's some things that they did really well. So it's really going back and finding those things that you did well and those things that you didn't do well and looking at the team coming back and making a plan for the next year. So staying true to that process, I think, has helped us continue to be successful. And I don't believe in changing that just because you had a bad year. There's some things that we have to change, some things that we can do better, some things we need to do better. But as far as the process goes, and I do think our coaches and our players felt good about that because we didn't just yell and scream at everybody and throw things out the window because we had a bad year. We're very systematic, as we talked about before we started spring. Like, here are the things that we did well. Here are the things that we didn't do well. And here's how we're going to get better at those. And here's some things that we're just going to kick out. We're not going to do anymore. And, hey, we did some studies from NFL teams and college teams, and we think these things are going to fit. So we took some things out, added some things, accentuated a few other things. And I think our guys feel really good about where we're going right now.
Coach, we could talk to you forever, but you have 30 more Zooms to get to. So we appreciate you making time. It's great to see you.
Always good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Coach Shaw.